image generation is already there, right? You can already do that at scale with AI. I think what's really improved the last 6 months is the video generation editing with AI, and being able to produce like high quality, like high production values videos that you generally want to associate with your brand.
Hi everyone, welcome on Aulium. Markus, very nice to have you with me one more time for another episode.
Good to be back.
So hi Edward.
Hi Dan.
Super happy to have you on board. Probably you are our first e-commerce expert on the show, so we really can't wait to learn more about how we are getting targeted by advertising online.
Yeah.
But jokes aside, so you've set up LittleData 7 years ago. So a marketing ad tech company, based in London, specialized and focused, I think, on Shopify e-commerce. So yeah, as I said, I can't wait to see the sort of nitty-gritty details of advertising online. Maybe to kickstart the chat, do you mind spending a bit of time explaining what LittleData is and what you actually do? I think that would be a good starting point.
Yeah, sure. So LittleData helps direct-to-consumer brands get super accurate data into their marketing channels. So all these brands trading on Shopify, whether they be tiny startups through to big global brands, they all have the same challenges. They're using the same channels: Meta, Google, email marketing, TikTok, etc., to acquire customers. And the extent to which they can control their CAC and actually run a profitable business is the extent to which they can make the best use of all their first-party data and activate that in the channels to, as you candidly said, follow you around the web with adverts, but hopefully also serve relevant marketing communications to the relevant people. And we do that exclusively for brands on Shopify. We've got just under 1,000 paying customers globally. And we run the business. It's a remote-first business. We'll come on to more of that, but we're based I'm based in the UK. Most of the team's based around Europe, and we have a few in the US.
Okay, thanks. Is there like a reason why you focus only on, let's say, Shopify, or is it because it's maybe easier?
Well, the genesis of the business, really. So we started the business nearly 10 years ago as effectively a consultancy company, and I was working in London with brands like Made.com, rest in peace, and Big Leaves, and a few other kind of major e-commerce brands in the UK. And I was really acting as an analytics consultant and implementation expert for them. So I would get sucked into these big tagging projects and reporting, data science type projects. And the problem is it would always fall over with just the basic implementation. Like someone would deploy a change to the front end of the site. It would break the tracking. No one noticed for a month. Then they go back, want to report on it. Oh, damn it, we broke it. Now we're going to wait another month for the data to collect. It's this terrible cycle of like breaking and forgetting about it. So we realized there must be another way. And one of the VCs I was talking to at the time actually was saying, hey, look, we're seeing all this massive investment in Shopify space. Shopify is growing extremely strongly. If you pivoted to be a Shopify app, would that solve your sort of scaling problem and also, frankly, bring you a new go-to-market opportunity? And yes, so we got into the App Store in 2018, and that was really sort of when the growth took off. And I think what Focus on Shopify solved for us was a few things. First of all, is that there is, unlike any other e-commerce platform out there is a really vibrant ecosystem of partner app developers who are adding on Shopify, like trying to be the operating system of commerce. I actually nearly said e-commerce, but they increasingly define that to be broader than e-commerce, commerce in all places. And we're very happy to be that data layer for the Shopify brand. So it enables us to specialize in what we do. It's not something that Shopify see as core because it's not because they don't think data is important, but because integrating with third-party marketing channels is not their intention. And so we can fill that hole. We can be a specialist in that ecosystem. And yeah, there's so much product iteration there. Shopify releases stuff so quickly that I think if we chose to broaden our market and broaden our product, we then would lose that very deep focus, keeping lockstep with Shopify's changelog and releases.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I was running a e-commerce brand for 7 years. So, and it was on Shopify as well before, starting on this project with Thomas actually. And yeah, I was super curious because our issue was always data and how much can you believe the data versus
Sure.
just making decisions based on what you think is accurate. Have you got any specific advice for founders that are dealing with data and e-commerce, and also how does your app help with the truthfulness of the data, so to speak?
Yeah. So we believe in data accuracy as absolutely a primary problem to solve if you're trading online. Yeah, for a number of reasons, not least that there's no other visibility. If you run a physical store, you at least as a founder get some gut feel of like, hey, traffic in my store, how many of them actually went to the till, and with a particular product built browse and so on. That stuff is, if you run an online store, it's completely hidden. You need these online event data capture the customer journey to understand not just who bought, but what led them to buy. And I mean that in the widest possible sense, not just marketing campaign, but actually on site, what do they browse, what do they interact with, what content they read. And so the biggest challenge that I would advise founders to solve is that what I would call the sort of high level data synchronization or consistency, perhaps a better word. So the classic problem that brands we work with have is that they go into Shopify, which they know is their sort of dream, and they see they did £1,000 of sales, and then they go into Google Analytics for the same period, and they see like £820, right? And they're suddenly like, well, I can't believe Google Analytics because it's suddenly the numbers don't match. So I think if you solve that, like the high level metrics like revenue and orders, if they match, and that's exactly what LittleData does, then suddenly you increase the confidence in your marketing reporting across the business. Suddenly people don't look at Google Analytics or similar tools as a sort of, oh, I don't really trust that. Because that was classically, when I was a consultant, I'd hear that all the time, oh, I'm not sure I'd look at GA because I'm not sure someone set it up right. Whereas if you just know it out the box, set and forget it's all going to work, and you can go back to it and have confidence, it really changes the ability to which you can base decisions on that data.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. And so in terms of products, so I mean, it's fairly, let's say, achieved today. Like, you have obviously your product market fit, which you've had, like, I guess a few years ago. But how has the product evolved, and maybe the concept from the beginning to today? And what were maybe the key moments where, I mean, you not necessarily pivot, but what were the key moments that helped you essentially develop the product in a much more mature way and state?
Yeah. Well, and possibly just pick up that point about product market fit, because I think this is a much more fluid concept than a lot of people. I don't think it's a sort of binary point in time. And I think we thought we had PMF back in 2020. I said we launched the app in 2018. Back in 2020, obviously, COVID happened. A huge amount of purchasing switched online. All these brands who had kind of neglected their D2C channel suddenly like going, oh, we literally can't ship our stuff through the normal sort of wholesale channels. So we have to find a direct consumer route. We started to see, amazing growth. Yeah, I think we were up 100% year on year, and we sort of congratulated ourselves that must be because the product was great. But looking back on it, I think we got to that early adopter stage. We had people who, the real sort of data geeks and the really keen. Sorry if you're listening and you were an early customer. We love data geeks here. But I think my point is we weren't good enough for the mainstream. We weren't simple enough. We weren't robust enough for them for the mainstream Shopify store. And so I think what we then saw is really choppy times for a couple of years from like 22 to 24, where really it almost felt like we lost product market fit. Like and I think what happened is partly because the market moved on. Obviously PMF is, for a given market, and I think the market moved on, the requirements changed, some of the marketing tactics changed, Meta got a lot more, what happened, iOS 14 is always the kind of the moment people talk about, that was 2020. But I think basically it became a lot harder to serve ads online. CAC went up for a lot of brands, and suddenly people are questioning the data again. So we've kept on our lane. We've been very consistent. Like, no, the North Star metric we have to make this really ridiculously easy for brands to get data is still necessary. We just need to up our game in terms of serving a wider array of marketing channels, allowing more data customization, and going deeper with some of the Shopify features like Shopify Markets and Shopify Point of Sale, etc.
Yeah, I remember that period where before you had all the iPhone changes for privacy. It was a sort of holy grail period of marketing, and then all of a sudden you had like almost no data. It was quite a struggling, quite
And
a
some
difficult
brands went
time.
bust during the period, right? They literally just didn't pivot fast enough, and they were still merrily spending away on Meta, and and suddenly it just didn't work. It was one particular shoe brand I remember quite spectacularly bust. They were spending something like 20 million a month on Meta ads, and then just stopped working.
Yeah. It was kind of an overnight change. But yeah, you mentioned founders before briefly, and now you were talking about some larger brands. So was there any particular big retail brands that you were advising in the past where you had some common data problems, and is there anything in particular that you would advise them on in terms of board level advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on one of the areas, which was just sort of trying to actually get your numbers, your real sort of revenue numbers, to match what you see in the analytics tools. So you can take your overall number and then start dicing that up. And I was actually on a podcast earlier with another founder. He has a kind of analytics product, a profit analytics product, and we were talking about. I think that would be one of my big things. Is like a lot of brands get sucked into the attribution debate. Like they spend a lot of time worrying about, are my orders coming through this Facebook campaign or this Instagram campaign, or is it SEO versus paid in Google that's really working? Is it brand search or organic or non-brand SEO that's working for me? The answer is it's all of the above. Marketing tends to be an additive game. You've got lots of different touch points going together. And I'm not saying it's, obviously you can get marketing attribution tools, but it tends to be an endless debate of models. And, having been in this game for 15 years now, I just see circular arguments about which is the right model. There's no right model. The point is that what often happens when you're squabbling over that is you miss the basic point, which is that you need to know your revenue, your gross margin, your financial numbers, and you need to understand how much you have to spend on marketing.
So you said that, so major problem is you can't really reconcile numbers, so they are always sort of different. But at the end of the day, I mean, I know when you want to essentially manage a business, etc., the more accurate data you have, the better. But at the end of the day, I mean, do they really make a difference, or just having proxies and understanding, okay, my sales are coming from that channel more than this one, even though I don't have the right numbers, but in terms of, relatively speaking, I understand that works and that doesn't work. And I'll probably see that in terms of margin, it doesn't work or it works. So my question is really is it, I mean, getting those data perfect?
Yeah.
Is it some sort of a deal breaker for if you want to push a successful business or not?
Yeah.
Or is it some form of optimization?
So I think I should clarify here, and it maybe goes back to your question about kind of how the products evolved. So we used to have a very focus on data for reporting. It was when I started consulting, it was all about analytics and Google Analytics specifically. But the reality is that it's very hard for any brand leader to put their to say what is the value of accurate reports. What does that actually bring me? Hopefully more confidence, but it's quite hard to sort of put a return on investment of that. And in the world in which we live in now, with a lot of brands, as I said, being very tight on margin, they really need to justify all of their spend, particularly their tools, their software spend. And so we've pivoted the product and pivoted the messaging to be much more about getting better activation of the data in your marketing channels, basically be able to actually get a higher return on ad spend, more revenue from the same tactics. And so while we talked so far about Google Analytics, I'd like to move the conversation a bit into the other things we sport, because let's take Meta ads as a good example. The game has moved on. Let's say Meta generally has become a more expensive channel, whatever kind of tactic you're doing in there, Instagram, Facebook, etc. But the point is, if you can improve the signal into those marketing channels, what Meta's invested in, Google and TikTok as well, is obviously the huge amount of AI, automated targeting, budget allocation, etc. So if you can give it the right signal of what is driving sales to the best of their knowledge, this person that bought, and you can be really accurate and tell them not just that this was a cookie ID, but actually it was Edward and he lives here and he has this IP address and so on, they would do a much better job of finding more people like Edward who are going to buy your product. That's both in lookalike audiences. It means just allocating the budget, the right creative, increasingly automating the process of actually the creative, because that can all be optimized. If a particular ad is performing well, the AI can go away and, hey, let's produce another version of that ad and 100 more versions of that, and test those. So all of these incredible automation loops are there in order to basically find better performing ads, but it only works if you can feed the right signal in, and that right signal is the purchasing customers, the people who are actually buying at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, because I guess the marketing game evolved a little bit as well with the introduction of Reels as, a way of driving a lot of top of funnel. Are you noticing that having an effect on the meta ads or maybe the ads the paid ads versus what it was like before? Or
I don't specifically think it's the ads types that's changed. I just think that it's become generally harder to see a return from ad spend, because the amount you have to do to acquire a customer, maybe the number of times you retarget them to get there is higher. What I would say is that, and this goes back to, I think, a trap brands can fall in about certainty, where if you're focusing your ad spend on bottom of funnel kind of retargeting, people who already found you through another channel, the return ad spend can look fantastic, right? Kind of like, oh wow, this is amazing, but it's diminished. It's like that it's like shooting fish in a barrel, and that fish was just right there. They were just about to buy, and I served an ad to them, and hey, amazingly they converted. Like, yeah, but that's not causing them to convert. It's not causality. It's just correlation. I served an ad to them, and then they purchased because they were going to do so anyway. So I think what we try and encourage brands to do is have the confidence to invest in top of funnel, even though the ROAS will be a lot less. But at least with the right data, with the right signal, you're truly building your audience, you're building your new customer base. And to that effect, one of the features we've added this year, which has been hugely successful, is a new customer conversion event. So not just telling, again, I'm picking on Meta. Let's start talking about Google Ads, the same thing. Not just telling Google that someone purchased, but this person had not purchased on my Shopify store before. And that's much more valuable. As a brand, like, if they're already on your email marketing list and they've purchased them before, do you really want to spend ad spend and bring them back? Maybe. But I think it's much more valuable for you to find someone who is a net new purchaser, and you'd be willing to bid higher for those.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so would you also suggest that in terms of the data sources that you go to customers directly and use the data from customers versus just the data that you're getting from the conversion metrics on different platforms?
Yeah, so the critical thing about the first party customer data is, in the stuff they fill in the checkout, is that is your route around those. So what happened with the various Apple privacy restrictions, but also just general use of cookie banners and stuff, is that when you clicked on an ad and you land on a site, a lot of that information, that identifiers that said this ad had come from this user, were lost. And so when the pixel kind of gets through the checkout and the purchase, assuming that purchase is even triggered, which in a lot of cases not, there's no kind of meaningful identifiers to say where this user came from. They effectively seem to have come out of the ether. But if you share with the conversion end, or even add to cart and checkout events, their person's email address, their phone number, their physical address, their IP address, these are all things you got from the checkout with the ad platform, then ad platform can do it in a totally privacy compliant way. You can hash that data, but then the ad platform can go, aha, this is Edward, because I know this is his email address. I have him, Google and Meta have these huge device graphs, billions and billions of devices globally they're tracking on, and they can join the dots of, and it works for ads that I view, not just the ones I click on. If I advertise on YouTube and I see that YouTube ad on my Apple TV, let's say, and then I go and purchase on my laptop, although there's no click journey there, based on my user accounts, based on the actual logged in Meta or Google accounts, I can be linked to the ad. And that enables us to understand the attribution. In fact, it goes further than that. I can even understand the effect of ads on my offline purchasing. So again, we support tracking of all these orders. Let's say you have a physical store, you have Shopify point of sale in that store, so it's all linked to your Shopify backend. If you serve an ad to that person, they walk into your store and purchase, we can link the ad spend and attribute the ad spend to that purchase. And so this is really important in a modern world where not only the channels proliferating, but the marketing channels proliferating, but the purchasing channels, the order channels are proliferating. And we need to link all of those together.
Super interesting. So if I understood correctly, so you are taking some of your data from the different purchases I may have from my Shopify website,
Yeah,
and you send that back to Google, Meta, etc., telling them, okay, those people are
yeah.
actually the ones who bought.
Yeah. And then
Okay.
Google does the job. Obviously they don't disclose that, but they do the job of the matching behind the scenes. So this the customer data is never being, as I said, it's never being leaked anywhere. It's all quite secure. But they then do the matching to say, but if this person probabilistically does match a profile that I've served an ad to, we can say with a certain degree of certainty certain degree of certainty that this is the same person and this ad had impact. And that is
Okay.
what was lost, and that's what can be added back with the right integration.
Okay, understood. And so do you use, I mean, well, AI is everywhere, so I mean, we have to ask the question, like, do you use AI in your system to track the sort of prospect to client journey?
Yeah, not as such, because I guess really we're about feeding in that raw data into the platform. So, part of the point is that we're allowing the AI to do its job by feeding it the data points it needs. And obviously, I think we all understand that that's in the modern world, that's the limiting factor with AI. It's not the model itself; it's the proprietary data you can feed the models.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's effectively our message to brands is that we're not we're not going to take on a Google or Meta. They've got incredible depth of talent with building machine learning models. What we're doing is better, providing a better signal to those models. Now we do use AI, obviously, to build our product, and I think increasingly we use an user interface to configure the product. But we're not trying to do the determination of whether this person was the same person as such. We simply say, look, if we know it, we either know that it was Edward or we don't know it was Edward. It's quite determined.
I was more thinking about like maybe okay you spot so you are a client, so I'm running some ad campaigns now in January. I can see that you're coming on the website, you're looking at some specific things, maybe raincoats, but you
Yep.
don't buy anything. And
Yep.
then I run another ad campaign, and then you come and you buy. But maybe in the process, an AI system could essentially say, yeah, but he bought because the day after they were forecasting rain, so he was looking at a raincoat, so that's why he actually came.
Yep. Yeah, I think the scope to do that. I mean, you can already do that in like Google Analytics. You can pull in data points like the weather and their local location. I definitely know brands that have very, very weather dependent products, sunscreen or raincoats, whatever, that do that. I think though that we're not really so much in the game of pulling in third party data, stuff that like the weather or whatever that's outside of that. The brands could do, maybe we'd do in the future. We're really the game we're in the moment is just actually maximizing the stuff, that proprietary stuff about your customers that you capture in your own internal systems and passing that through. But what is definitely useful and something that again we're expanding into is being able to do better marketing automations, both when it comes to like email and SMS, and on-site personalization. So the extent to which you've viewed products before or viewed ads about this or interacted with ads about this product before is a really good determinant of what we should push to you as a product. And I think one of the things that brands aren't maximizing enough at the moment is this sort of this valuable stuff about even if we don't know, even if this person has not purchased from us previously, if they have interacted with any of our assets previously, our ads or public store, like if we can push this into our storefront, then we can maybe serve them the right product, recommend the right products. A lot of product recommendations in e-commerce are still really dumb. They're just basically like this is the same category or the same color, so you might like that. Or maybe if you go further, it's just there's genuinely a designer saying, "Hey, this works well with this product." Like I'm thinking about fashion here. This polo shirt works really well with these shorts. But I think in most use cases, what brands aren't doing, I think the big opportunity is to do genuine personalization, where we know that you were looking at this particular thing, and hey, let's push you an offer about that thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if I look at some of the Amazon suggestions that I get, it's definitely very strange. So the recommendation algorithm, I think there is some improvement that can be made. But I was wondering actually, so in your experience, I know that from my experience, when we were looking at conversion data, for example, so if you wanted to look at how much revenue you're converting on a specific sale and where that's coming from, often over half of our revenue wasn't really attributed to ads. It was just because, there was like a 7-day attribution or 29-day attribution. I don't know what it is now with Facebook, but it wasn't able to track it.
Yeah.
Do you see in your experience, like how much revenue would you say is able to be tracked? And is there a way that you can improve that level of trackness towards the ads?
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned this idea of an attribution window, and that's perhaps just to explain that concept. So, you're basically saying like within how many days back before the purchase do we want to consider marketing campaigns to be within scope of having influenced that sale? And as you say, a 30-day click window is pretty standard for a lot of marketing. I mean, probably 7-day click is maybe slightly more conservative, because you can argue if someone was clicking through 20 days ago, but was that really what drove them to purchase today?
Hmm.
And so here's the problem. If we look at customer journeys that are tracked online, that journey is getting shorter and shorter because of cookies are getting wiped, or people aren't consensually tracked, or they're using Safari, or these various things. Safari literally wipes the cookies after 7 days. So even if someone visited like 20 days ago and they come back now, we don't know it's the same person. We don't credit that campaign 20 days ago. So this is another reason why I think people argue about attribution model unnecessarily. Like, first click is last click because there's only one click. We only know one click about that customer. So that's the problem to solve. Is it's not like it's basically like, can we have a better view of the customer lifetime journey before they purchase? That's the challenge. And yes, I mean, it's not an entirely solvable problem. As I said, these things are it's been eroded generally over the last 10 years. But with LittleData software, we can make those cookie identifiers a bit stickier. We can persist them. So if someone came to your site last week and they come back again, for example, we can allow you to run an abandoned cart flow to them because they're on your email list. You actually do know this customer. They've opted into marketing. The problem is you don't know it's the person that was browsing that product. So that can be incredibly powerful if we can just simply identify that this is the same person who visited last week. Not for all users, but even if we can improve that by 30, 40%, that's one of the things we can really add to the brand's marketing efficiency.
So do you feel that, I mean, for a non-technical person, would you be able to maybe explain just, which includes myself as well, just how would you explain a data layer, and like how could that potentially be used to help with some of the customer identity issues and fraud issues that you tend to see?
Yeah, okay. So what we mean by a data layer is basically a consistent set of customer order and product data that can be fed into any of the data destinations, typically the marketing channels that you want to support. And so we see this as about unifying all this data across the Shopify ecosystem, whether it's stuff that's directly on Shopify store or maybe metadata you're capturing about, maybe they filled in a survey. A lot of brands use like quizzes and stuff to qualify people now. Skincare is a classic example where most everyone will have a quiz about your type of skin you have. Pull in that sort of thing. Pull in their loyalty tier if they're on a larger platform. Pull in their subscription information if they were a previous subscriber. And if we can make that all consistent, it's very simple. Then we can pass that through to the channels that are relevant. And as I said, there's an element of reducing fraud, but the main benefit there is just that we are consistent customer data, and means that the marketing channels are getting the best chance of targeting the right people who are actually going to purchase. And as I said, that's what's going wrong for a lot of brands. Yes, there's a reporting gap. Yes, the revenue doesn't match, but on a customer level, they're simply not tracking 20, 30% of the people who are purchasing. And that means a 20 to 30% less efficiency in terms of targeting.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so to go back to some AI questions, there are solutions now like that promise to essentially create your ads for you, like manage essentially budgets, etc. What's your take on this? I mean, do you think it's do you think that works? Would you do that for yourself or?
Yeah. I mean, to take a couple of examples, we have a partner in the US called Grid and Pixel that are doing this for email imagery specifically. So, they can create based off all we know about the customer, which by the way is a perfect partnership with us because we enrich the custom profile. They can then have some more relevant images, particularly what the customer's browsing on the site. From an ads perspective, yeah, absolutely. I've seen some very cool stuff when we've done with creative. I think this was a large bit about, if you saw Meta made this acquisition on the 31st of December, Manus in Singapore. And I think a lot of that was like, can we bring more of this sort of AI creative generation to embed within Meta's advertising platform? Because that's, if you think about it from like what is holding back a lot of brands advertising more, it is simply the limit to the creative they can serve. People get creative fatigue quite easily on these platforms, and you've got to be able to serve up more. And I think I think image generation is already there, right? You can already do that at scale with AI. I think what's really improved the last 6 months is the video generation editing with AI, and being able to produce like high quality, like high production values videos that you generally want to associate with your brand. And so, I think, in the short term, I think that means that creative agencies can be a lot more productive. Although that obviously brings pressure on the agency cost base. But I think in the long term, it may mean that actually a lot of this stuff is kind of incorporated within the ad platform. That you just, and that the Zuckerberg had was as effectively saying, look, the goal was always to say, hey, you say what you want to promote, and here's your budget, and we'll just basically do the rest. Like we'll take your current creative, we'll put it into format we know will work for viewers, we'll test it, and then and that's the game we're in. We're not on the creative generation game, we're in the signal feedback loop game, so that we make sure that the wacky creative ideas that come up are genuinely driving the right buyers.
Okay, understood. And so maybe can you paint us a bit like the sort of e-commerce market, like the big trends at work? Today, you mentioned that, right after COVID, during COVID, e-commerce lived through like some sort of a boom. What's going on now? And what are like the, key challenges ahead or opportunities you see in the market?
Yeah, so I think, firstly, I think Shopify is being massively dominant in the space, and a lot of larger brands that 5 years ago would have dismissed it as not customizable enough for their needs are moving Shopify. I genuinely don't know of one upper mid-market or enterprise brand that's moved to any other platform over the last couple of years. So it's become incredibly dominant. You've probably seen those adverts across the tube in London and stuff about the Shopify checkout. So like, even if you don't want to rebuild all your tech stack, if you want to keep that custom, like just using Shopify's checkout is going to basically improve your conversion rate. I think the second trend is that we have. I'm basically I think that's why Shopify is doing well. I think a lot of people were very cynical when I was raising money for LittleData in the early days, that hey, aren't all brands just isn't Amazon going to eat the e-commerce world, and everything just becomes. And actually, there's a vibrant group of established brands that they don't want to just delegate it all to Amazon, because Amazon doesn't take their margin, they copy their product. Like, Amazon's a competitor to them. What Shopify is a partner. They help the brand to go to market. They're not. It may go that way. There's we get deeper into Shopify's strategy there, but I think at the moment that's where they're seen. And then what's coming next is agentic commerce, like this idea that a lot of people are maybe not necessarily browse for products on people's sites or browse around marketplaces, but actually just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm looking for this, and what are my options? And certainly I've experimented in certain purchases. I would do that. I'd certainly use it for buying sort of boring stuff like building products. I've just built my new home office, kind of crushing down on price, and where can I buy the cheapest version of this? Currently, that experience is quite poor. Like, you kind of click through, and ChatGPT may or may not have got the link right, and that product may or may not be available in your region. But I think that's what's going to get a lot better the next 6 months, is that you'll be able to check out and fulfill. Shopify's already announced this partnership with OpenAI. Check out and fulfill within the chat. Yeah, I just log in with a ShopPay account to say I want this, and it'll just happen. So I think that's it's not going to happen overnight, but I think that is where we're going. Is, do people even need a storefront at all? How many people love online shopping? Do they really want to click around and browse around each website? Or would they rather just be able to say to the agent, hey, go and find me something like this? Yeah, that looks good. Almost like a personal online shopping experience.
Mm-hmm.
You've brought up Amazon there, which is really interesting. So, certainly in the US, I think it's 1 in every 2 revenue, dollars in e-commerce comes through Amazon.
Yeah.
How do you work with Amazon? Yeah. How do you I mean, does LittleData integrate into that as well? Is it Shopify only?
We do, to the extent that they route those orders through the Shopify store. So basically, there's two ways that you might sell through Amazon. You might effectively, use Amazon as a marketplace and fulfill through your Shopify store. A lot of brands just choose to do that because, as we know, like there's the Amazon Prime particularly, and makes it so easy to buy and deliver that a lot of people, even the price is the same or even slightly more expensive on Amazon, they'll just go to Amazon for that convenience. But if they are choosing to have Amazon a completely separate channel and store inventory and stuff on Amazon, then that's the challenge. We don't currently have visibility on those orders. Now, we would like to, and one of the reasons we've never gone that way is that just Amazon shares very little data. And this is one of the real reasons why Shopify's become so popular, is because, as I said, if I go and, let's say, delegate all of the order processing to Amazon, it comes at a massive cost, which is that I don't know anything about my customers. All I get told by Amazon is we ship this many orders. I don't know who they were, what their email address is. I don't know, what they like, what they browse before they consider what other products. So there's no direct customer relationship. And I think most brands realize that in the long term, they want to be successful. They need at least a good proportion of their business generally coming through a customer base that they have a direct channel to.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Amazon it's difficult to get the data there, and there's also Amazon it's a challenging one, but if you can manage to make it work in conjunction with the Shopify data that you get,
I think you have to do both.
Well.
Yeah, I do think most brands come down the doing both, but I think we tend to work with more of the sort of not sort of commodity products that maybe Amazon's the only alternative, but more like the ones that have a very strong brand identity, and Amazon would be sort of 5-10% of the orders, not 50% of the orders.
Yeah. And then, so you mentioned, briefly a vision for the future, or maybe it's already happening with agents. You can just tell an agent, "Hey, do my shopping for you." I mean, I would love that because I personally hate shopping. Talk us a little bit more about Agentic Commerce. Are you seeing more and more of that? Is it just young shoppers that are doing this? And how does the customer journey work?
I mean, I can only talk from my personal experience. I do think slightly I might be in a bubble of people who are sort of AI curious and therefore more likely to shop. It's got to be said that I don't really, for most of the brands we work with, this is still low single digits of traffic. But definitely different. If you are in a very techie product, to sort of hardware or something, you might well see 20-30% of your traffic already coming from AI search. And when I say AI search, at the moment it is ChatGPT. That's the game, except that it's just slightly confused because obviously Google does do AI search, just doesn't really appear as anything. You see it as just coming from Google, and people think of it as coming from Google. So I think those are the two channels that are driving real traffic brands: ChatGPT, which does come as ChatGPT, and you'll see it in Google Analytics as such, and Google, which you just see it as part of the general organic search you get from Google. And so I think that's already happening. But as I said, the moment it's happened, the journey looks like this. You search and you get dropped into a product detail page, and then you either buy or don't buy from there. So AI is only taking the top level of the journey, like the sort of the browse on your own store bit. What's going to happen next, for sure, and as I said, this technically already exists, and the ChatGPT, yes, but also Google just announced a partnership with Shopify, NRF, Monday, and they were saying, hey, we're going to do this for Google Gemini and Google AI now, where you can check out and buy within the chat. So you'll be able to basically say, right, yes, this is the product I want, rather than just clicking out of the chat. You'll be able to say, add to cart, check out, either enter my card details or log in with my ShopPay account, and it will fulfill, and you won't leave the chat.
So for this, I mean, it feels that it would be for like everyday kind of goods, not necessarily like the products provided by strong brands or.
Maybe. I'm on the fence about that. I think that there is an element of I think there will be an element of people who are very kind of AI first. They do all of they interact with the outside world through these AI agents. So I do generally believe they're out there right now. You're right, they probably are a younger consumer. They're probably people who work in tech already. And I think for a small minority of people, they will want to do their shopping that way. I think it'll be really, really different depending on what kind of product it is. Like obviously, if you, as I said, my personal example, that what I've used it for is very sort of technical product screws or something like that, where I just need the exact, it needs to be this measurement, this specification. If it is, then cool, I just want the cheapest place. And what's interesting is that often, going back to your point about Amazon, often what it recommends is I go and buy it from Amazon because that is in fact the cheapest place to get it. So I think for price comparison, if you're in a very price competitive product, I believe that's very true. I think if you're in a much more sort of creative design, fashion type category, I think that's way off. Apart from anything that, the imagery and the browse experience in ChatGPT is still way off what you would get in if you actually went to the brand store. And it's a real challenge for brands because when they can't really inject directly the kind of brand voice and the brand messaging, the brand imagery into the chat. So if you're a kind of luxury brand, you're denuded of all of the things that would make your product actually feel like it was worth that money. So yeah, I think it'll vary. But and also I generally think the purchasing. I mean, I actually don't know anyone who has yet purchased within ChatGPT. I'm sure it might be in pilot in the US. I suspect it is. But I don't know who's actually done that. I certainly haven't, and so I suspect we're talking years.
What do you think is going to do to your product? I mean, are you already thinking about, okay, if this is growing, we need to modify the product in this or that way? Or?
I think our core promise still holds true, which is that we want to track the orders wherever they happen. So take that last example where someone goes full journey within ChatGPT and just drops, that will appear in your Shopify store as a ChatGPT order. There'll be no history to it. So the challenge there again is trying to figure out what was the top of funnel, because you can be pretty sure they didn't just randomly stumble across your brand. ChatGPT may have recommended you if you have great reviews and ratings and other testimonials and stuff based on a certain thing. Maybe you have a very specialist product, in which case, but if you have a more general product, it's highly likely that the customer found you through, some top of funnel advertising, and what they were actually using the AI for was to do sort of price comparison, straight product comparison. Like, I think I want this product. That's what I understand this sort of modern consumer to be using it for. Is not product discovery, but like checking that I've made the right choice. And so, and as I said, particularly if I have a very technical product where I need to really compare the features and check I've got the right thing. So I imagine if you're buying, like camera equipment or laptops or something, ChatGPT is going to be huge in terms of discovery for you. But as I said, what we still need to do is tie that back to the rest of the marketing journey. And so I think still same problem exists. I don't know that there's no click journey. And so if I can actually take that customer's details, because I have them now because I need to ship them the order, and I can match that back in the ad platform, they can tell me if this is someone we've advertised to and still attribute it to an ad if that was the case.
Okay, understood. Maybe so. Like entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial journey are never like, let's say, a steady sort of path. I mean, people would call it like a roller coaster.
Yep.
Like life is not pink every day. It is massively pink some days. Do you think you could maybe go back to essentially, like your own journey with LittleData and maybe run us through like some lessons or things you've experienced like firsthand, like some sort of certitudes, and then I don't know, you change your mind or change the course of the company, and maybe a few things. I'm sure you
I
remember.
think one of the things I've really oscillated around is financing and venture capital. So I sort of, and I think talking to other founders, I think this is quite common where, you have great ambition. I think we're solving a real problem. There's massive demand for what we do. But it's a technical product development. We need a lot of resources. And there's this temptation, and I admit to having been lured many times and perhaps wasted quite a lot of time, particularly in 2020 and 2023, trying to go out to market and raise money, because I felt like, hey, that's how you accelerate. Like you get more money in the door, we build a better product, we get it out to more people. That's how we prime the pump. The problem is that we're twofold, actually. The first thing is that B2B SaaS is actually not a great category for VC investment, because it's something that you can do without. It's not like we've had paying customers day one. We have a revenue model that doesn't necessarily need venture capital, and it comes with a lot of downsides, because then the companies, and there were plenty of companies in our space that took that money in 2021 and ran off with it. But you know what I mean? They spent the money and they got nothing from it. Like they went through exactly the same roller coaster ride as we did, except that they were 10x bigger and had to shrink 10x faster. So it's just a bigger roller coaster. So I think, if I really look back on it, I don't think that, and I'm now quite anti raising VC because I just don't think that would actually have solved our problem. It would have given us more runway. We would have, hired a bigger team. Certainly, maybe it would have made me more famous. But I don't think it necessarily would have improved our chance of building a profitable business. In fact, it might have reduced our chances because that's what we've always got to remember about the VC model is that they don't really want a lot of their companies to survive. They'd rather you die trying to get rich, as they say.
Yeah, but so in that case, I mean, don't you think? How did you solve? Your problem because you didn't close down the company and start it again.
No.
So how did you solve that issue with investors? At what point did you feel essentially that there was a disconnect between what essentially the capital table was telling you to do or to try to achieve, and essentially the reality check where you were, okay, we've achieved something, but it's not going to be like a 100 billion kind of business.
Well, I think to a certain extent, having the right investors that understand that. I think we were always honest about the fact that this isn't I'm a second-time founder, but I didn't make a big exit out of my first business, so I'm not really in it. I think it's different. I think if you've had a couple of successful exits or even one successful exit, and you're kind of what VCs call swinging for the fences, it's a bit different. I actually would rather make have a high probability of making a modest amount of money out of LittleData rather than a low outcome of making a huge amount of money. That's where I think, and that's not aligned with venture capital, as I said. But it is aligned with lots of angel investors, and also we've now got sort of debt finance where they want us to to have steady growth and to actually survive and to get there, and I think that's okay as long as we're all honest about what the outcome is. Going back to your point though, I think there definitely was a point in the business where it felt like really bleak that we were well off track, and that this is really going back to sort of end of 2022, 2023. We hadn't had our goals. We weren't profitable. We didn't have the resources to carry on much longer. And I think I was terribly worried about, and we did have to shrink the team a bit. And I was terribly worried that we'd go into the spiral of team would shrink. We wouldn't then be able to achieve what we wanted to do. People would see us as a failing company. Customers leave. It turns out that customers just want the product to work. So providing you just do the basics right, a lot of the rest of it is just my sort of ambition getting almost getting in the way of doing a good job. And we now have to do all that stuff and just say, hey, let's do what we can with the resources we have. The answer to everything is not hiring someone else. It's basically how can we be more efficient. And as you say, in a world in which AI is there, particularly when it comes to coding, that is possible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, especially if you're drawing it back to the VC model, where you might say that, okay, maybe we have, $1 million or 2 million more to spend on the product, but that might not necessarily be, necessary at that point in time, right? So, are there any particular lessons that you've learned regarding product development that have been maybe shaped by the way that you've approached investment as well?
Yeah, well, I think as I said, that the only product strategy that goes hand in hand with a lean startup approach is to be incredibly selective about what product you want to build and for whom. What you absolutely cannot afford is a broad sort of smorgasbord of product ideas and try a bit of everything. And to that extent, we did try to launch across into BigCommerce, another Shopify alternative in 2022. That was part of the kind of, and we had to go back from that because we're like, look, in a world in which we have fewer resources, we simply can't afford to dilute and have a side bet on BigCommerce. At the time, it was like under 1% of our customer base. So we just like, hey, the right option here is to kill it. That's you have to be really ruthless about killing failing products or killing failing features if you're going to have your small team focus on progressing the stuff that actually matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. And I guess you're making a decision on just killing a part of the product potentially versus, you could have a VC that might come in and decide just to kill the whole funding future and thereby kind of kill the company in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's one way to look at it, isn't it? Exactly. That you kind of VC funding allows you to take multiple bets at the same time, but ultimately bet the whole ship one of those things coming off. Whereas, providing we're fairly certain that our core product is necessary, and as we've covered, I do believe we've validated that people need the product and it works, and they get great results from it. They get higher, higher marketing efficiency, higher revenue growth. Then, we should have the confidence to just continue to invest in that, to keep up to date. As I said, it's no mean feat. That's the other thing I think, particularly in marketing tech, but it may be just true for all sorts of tech now, is the world is moving so fast. You have to run to keep still sometimes. And so I think we've persistently underappreciated how much investment we need to make in engineering in terms of keeping up to date and keeping it, keeping the lights on, not just the lights on, but keeping in lockstep with Shopify's roadmap and making sure we're relevant to all the latest features.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So just moving on to, one of the ways that you can scale and achieve efficiencies, I guess, through capital, which you can do through angels, and you could get the big checks through VCs as well. If you're another route is the team, right? So would you say that what are your main takeaways in terms of hiring, and how important has the team been to your success? And do you have any suggestions for hiring?
I mean, really important, right? I'm very lucky that my wife is actually work for Skype and Microsoft, and a few Skyscanner as a recruiter, and so kind of hiring a talent in the technology area is her specialism, and she helped when we were hiring a lot of people in 2021, to kind of lead on that. It's a skill in itself, and a lot of it is actually just I think I learned from her is pitching the company. You are selling to great people that this is the place that they should put their talent, just like you were pitching for investment. Because them choosing to spend their precious time working around your vision is absolutely an important investment. And I think finding people who are resilient, finding people, that, as we just covered, the startup journey is not for the faint-hearted. People who are self-starters don't need a lot of management overhead. We found that to our cost, where we find people who basically make work for other people. That's a disaster. And in fact, that's so interesting. When I told you, we had to sort of, nearly halve the size of the company in 2022, 23, and in terms of people. And before that, I thought our biggest problem was we need to hire like a chief operating officer. Like we had a real management operating problem, and we're struggling. It's quite different going from 20 people to 40 people. But obviously that problem just went away. We got rid of all the difficult people, all the ones that were needing managing, and then we just have a really self-sufficient team. They all know what they're doing. They all trust each other, and suddenly there's no need for all these expensive middle managers because there's no operational problem. So that's what I look for in new hires, is people who are just gonna, they're problem solvers. They're going to be self-sufficient and get on with it, not make work for lots of other people.
Okay, and so I mean, you posted recently on LinkedIn like an open letter to different stakeholders of the business, where you essentially admitted that you went through a difficult personal time. Do you mind maybe elaborating on this? I think it's very brave. I mean, I actually to essentially be open. It's actually hard. I mean, you would imagine an entrepreneur needs to essentially give the impression that you are like a rock, that you never have problem, that you need to go there. And actually, that's not really the case a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in radical transparency, and we live that through the business, and being very open with our team and with our shareholders about where we're at. I think that, as you say, so much, particularly on LinkedIn, so much fakery around. It's all going to the moon, until obviously it's not. Now, I think that it's just painful. I missed it maybe at the time. It was hard to talk about things, and I definitely felt like, I wouldn't say I got full burnout. I just definitely got to this place, and I remember I'd been at it nearly 7 years at that point, and I just definitely got this place where I felt, God, do I have the energy to see this? Clearly the end is not 6 months away. I think we thought, hey, we can, in the good times, we thought, hey, we're maybe a year off exit, and this is looking great. And then you're in the trough, and you're in the trenches, and you're looking up, and you're the big mountain, and it's I know I can't see the summit. I'm going up, but I can't see the summit. And that, as a founder, is tough emotionally. Are you going to be able to motivate yourself to carry on walking up the hill without seeing the summit? And, we've got there. I think a lot of it is just the basics of taking care of yourself and not, I think with burnout, it's not something you can solve just by, it's not a business challenge, it's a personal challenge, right? You've got to find other things in your life. And I'm lucky enough to have lovely, 3 children. They're a lot of my time and attention, friends, exercise, health. I'm very lucky to have all those things. But I think that what I did realize is that, as I don't think we went through a 18-month process where it just felt like quite grind, not necessarily like I was quitting, but it felt not peachy most of the time. It felt like it's hard. And then I just realized, I wrote the letter because I kind of realized, in 2025 it changed. And a lot of that was getting to sort of operating profitability. We're not sort of, we're not aiming to run the business for profit. We're still very much investing the incremental revenue back in the product development. There's still a lot to do, but still the fact that basically that's what it meant at the beginning when I said we are default alive. It's a famous Paul Graham quote, right? Like it's a big difference when you don't have to raise money with a gun to your head, and you if you basically just carry on, the money comes in. That's cool. And that's actually one of the things I've always loved about software as a service, and why I wanted to run that kind of business, is because it's it is a repeatable business. If you want to go and take a break for a couple of weeks, the client revenue doesn't drop off a cliff. And so I think that's it. Just suddenly felt like actually the momentum is there. We've got people know what we're doing. We've got through the hard bits. We also had to, we decided to bite the bullet and tackle it's a good bit of sort of technical debt last year. Again, a lot of software companies, they've been going for like 6-7 years. They've accumulated quite a lot of just overhead of dead ends and features no longer used. And so we took the opportunity to rebuild a lot of that. And so it now feels like we're free of a lot of that, and we're motoring.
Oh, great, great to hear. I mean, it's true that, I mean, in terms of profitability, like I was talking to another an entrepreneur. They essentially had like some liquidity event like along their journey. I mean, nothing like to make them super rich, but enough to essentially that to have that weight out of your essentially back. And he said it actually changed our appetite to take on risks to develop the business further, etc., just because they had that sort of safety net. Again, I mean, they were not rich, but they were more essentially safe in their...
I think there's a healthy amount of pressure, financial pressure to have as a founder. And what I've found is that I'm most motivated by, moderate financial pressure. Like I think that it gets to a level where it's unhealthy. And when I mean unhealthy, what it means is you're making very kind of defensive survival kind of decisions. You're not going big. Now, I don't, as I said, I don't think we're definitely not in the mode where we're trying to be the next OpenAI and $1 billion exit. That is a different thing. $1 trillion exit, but equally it comes with its own challenges. I mean, I read a really interesting article about OpenAI in The Economist last week about how even at the scale they're at, I mean, the huge funding they're at, they're burning money like no tomorrow, and actually they need to raise such an incredible amount of money just to continue in the next few years. It's quite possible it just goes bust anyway. Like even though it's a very popular product, the costs of running the product are so extreme that it still might not survive. And so I think we have to live within our means, and I think we have to make sure that our mantra at the moment is profitable growth. Like we want to grow, but we need to do that in a way that is not burning money, where we have efficient customer acquisition channels. We've pivoted a lot of the marketing back into my own personal brand, LinkedIn content. Lots of, by the way, this was actually kind of how we started the business. And I did a lot of SEO and blog posts and stuff back in the day. And that's that. And so we just got, we just got a bit bloated, and we were trying to spend too much money, and we want to grow for the right reason. It's just that it wasn't happening. So pare it back, get a level keel, get on a path where you can, every month you can carry on going without pressure of risk of it all falling.
But so quick question, like regarding your own sales activities, like how do you go towards like customer? Like, because I mean, you are essentially in that part, but for B2C companies, how do you run for LittleData? I mean, your sales process, etc. I mean, do you run a lot of advertising to
No,
If
it's
so,
a
do
very
you
referral.
track behaviors?
Yeah, it's a good point. Do we eat our own dog feed? I mean, on one level, it's just a very referral-driven business. So a lot of people, a lot of new customers are referred by other brands or by agencies as work for. I think the problem is the kind of product it's quite hard to advertise because it sounds like moonshine. It sounds like we're just fraudsters. Like all this data just works and you don't have to worry about it. That can't be true. So I think that's been the credibility gaps has been real, and that's why referral really works for us. And so yes, we do track those referrals, and we have an agency. If you're an agency listening, we have an agency partner scheme to track that. We have started to scale up the ads again. We really pulled back from that at the end of 22. It's obviously the first cost any business cuts because it's sort of painless, right? No one's getting fired. But I think we recognize that we need to be out there in the market, and there's still scope for that. But I think one of the things I've personally worked on a lot over the last few weeks is just really a better outbound sort of platform. Fun enough, although there's a number of tools we use for sending emails, data sources of customers, etc., we didn't really have any of them joined together. And again, since we're in the business of integration, I decided to take a few weeks out of my schedule and just basically build our own marketing automations integrations using AI. And it is, I have to say, I think it's good as a founder, as a technical founder, to sort of get back into coding and to understand just how radically better it is with AI. And so, I think we can do more through just actually targeting the right people, the right message, the right time. And that's, in our case, that has the main thing I bank on, which is, as I said, because I believe in this, it's what we do as a business, is just better integrating the data that we have.
Okay, no, understood. So you actually build your own, let's say, piece of software / machine.
There are obviously products. This is not an unusual problem for B2B SaaS. It's just that I think when I started looking at it, honestly, by the time we've configured and purchased some other tool and it's not quite right, I have confidence in my own coding abilities to be able to build something quite robust. Because all the user interface type tools, what our sales team actually use in track tools, that's fine. We're not trying to build all of that internally. That'd be crazy. So Pipedrive for sales, Intercom for messaging, Smartlead for out cold email messaging, Ample Marketplace. These are all tools we use, but the problem was just actually making sure that they all have the right leads and person data at the right time.
Okay, understood. Maybe like one last question to maybe close the conversation. What are your wish list like for 2026? I mean, I know you just emerged like from, let's say, a relatively dark period for you, so you're already living the dream. But if you could enhance that dream, what do you need?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's still very much about pushing, selling LittleData to more customers. So I use the word push as if I'm a drug dealer. I mean getting people willingly to embrace it, because I honestly just feel like if we really take a step back, we have invested a lot in a high quality product. I think we add up all of the cumulative product investment spend over 5 years. It's something, it's over 5 million invested in the product. So it works. It's robust. I think our weakness has been in the sales and marketing, and that's one of the things that both through recruiting great people, to go back to a previous point, but through great tools, as I've just been talking about, I think we can improve. And so, we love more brands. I think maybe we do get to a stage where, we want to be ambitious. We want to, there's definitely a lot of stuff on the roadmap. One of the big things that we're working on in terms of, product roadmap at the moment is what we're calling the event customizer. So being able to, for the power user, being able to pull in a lot more different, let's say, meta fields, things like loyalty tiers or product types or so on into the marketing, so you can do more segmentation that way. So yeah, I'm pretty excited about this thing. I think the great thing is I don't feel at this stage of the business growth and at this stage of the team development, I feel like a lot of that is running. Like I don't have to push that to happen. I have great leaders in the business who are pushing that day to day. And my role can be a bit more, really truly strategic, both on the content, but also in terms of partnerships and, evangelizing that data, appearing on podcasts like this.
That makes sense. Luke, wish you all the best for 2026 and all thank you very much for your openness also, like on your journey. I mean, we've been.
I love helping other founders. If you're listening to this podcast and you're really stuck at that, I'm very happy to give you some personal advice. I believe you can only sort of. I believe in sharing what I've learned. It's not. I'm not a massive winner yet, but I definitely have some battle scars to show for it.
Fantastic. But look, thank you so much, Ed. It was a pleasure to have you on the show, and hoping to have you again in 2 years' time when you do like a $1 billion exit.
Thank
So thank you very much. Cheers.
Thanks, Ed.